Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, October the 23rd, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we pride ourselves on being a news podcast, which means that we do our best in due diligence to research the proper websites that have award-winning journalism and research. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, the News Media, Newsmax, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, whatever extreme left or extreme right views are out there. We simply don't do them. We provide you with nothing but just the facts. At the same time, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, guys, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start with this? Well, before we get into the usual, what has Trump done this week? I got to point out again that we are in an election season. We are not too far off from November 5th, where we will decide who is basically going to run the country the next 4 years. Do we give the expired Doritos, Locos, Nachos, Taco a second run at this? Or will we do the right thing and elect someone who's more than qualified to be the next president of the United States, who just happens to be a black woman? And yet the race is somehow still close. By that being said, guys, I've sat there and told you many a times in this podcast that, again, please make sure your voting registration is correct. Please make sure that, everything is on board, everything is right. Because when I tell you, and I've said this before, they will find any and all excuse to disengage you from voting. I myself, living in Middle Tennessee, early voting started for us as of October the 16th. Me and my wife decided to go ahead and early vote just because we wanted to beat the craze. Went to an early voting polling station, and really quickly the power went out. And yet it was kind of odd that this was inside a library and the voting machine's power went out. Even more so that no electoral official actually came out and notified everybody. It was more like security did it. Now, of course, it was odd that the voting machines lost power, but there was still power in the library. We could literally see lights and everything else on. The gym was still well lit up. So obviously, there was some trickery afoot. This is the part I'm getting to where it's annoying, because where we were going to was a large, diverse group of voters, people that were coming in by bus, people that were coming in by Uber. However, they made the trip to come early vote and only told that, again, that they were doing manual voting and that your voter registration card was required. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you this, because, again, all this information I'm about to spout is on vote.org. Never at any time will you be requested for your voter registration card. Only your ID. That's it. The fact that they're asking for that means that for a lot of people, they don't carry their voter registration card on them. Only their ID, because they are registered voters. So this is just another way for them to slow down the process, or in my personal opinion, somebody decided to sabotage it because, again, who else was the main person that was sitting here spouting all the nonsense that this election is going to be rigged, they're out to get me? Only one candidate is saying that. And yet, here I am in one of the reddest states in the South, and they're trying to pull, forgive me for lack of words, the bullshit. This is why I keep telling you guys, go to vote.org. Make sure everything's in order. Because, again, they're trying to move the goalposts. Because because what they did, and I say they as in the GOP, the conservatives, they have sat there and underestimated voter turnout. They're thinking voter turnout wasn't going to happen this year, and yet it's happening in droves. Who knew? Even more so, where our first story begins in Georgia. where I did not think this was going to happen. Because remember I said in Georgia that they tried to institute a whole bunch of Trump-allied legislation as far as voter polls, as far as purging voter rolls, things of that nature. Remember I said that they were trying to do all this before the election. Well, turns out the Georgia Supreme Court decided to block it, saying that these changes were sudden, that they didn't follow the proper process. At the same time, they could not be implemented. Now, again, that's all great, just because these are the rules that I keep talking about, guys, where one of the rules from Georgia, where thankfully this isn't blocked, and things that you should know, especially live in Georgia, that one of the rules that they were trying to push through is that, and I say this heavily, if county election officials see something wrong with the votes, under their discretion, they could do an inquiry that could take months before declaring someone the winner. Now, granted, they can't do that right now, but one of the rules they tried to push through was that one, that they tried to push through, that, hey, if I see something wrong, me being a county election official see something wrong, I can conduct an inquiry that could tie up the election for months. Thankfully, Georgia Supreme Court shut that down in a heartbeat because, again, it makes no sense for them to do that. But I keep telling you guys, these are the goalposts that they are trying to fix. At the same time, be aware and be active. I am telling you this from experience, not just from this past weekend, but from what they're trying to do in almost every, and let's be honest, every southern state they're trying to do this in. Because unfortunately, conservatives still have a lot of pull there. But again, be aware, be vigilant, be prepared. That's all I'm saying. But moving right along, I did want to get to good old Rudy Giuliani, or I should say the guy with the melting toupee that just will not change his oil. Well, remember a long time ago that he accused 2 Georgia poll workers of trying to throw the election? The same Georgia poll workers that had multiple death threats that had to go into hiding and yet won a very nice settlement from Mr. Giuliani. Yet Giuliani tried to claim bankruptcy and then didn't work for him. Well, he just got some more bad news today.
I can smell him.
Tonight, a federal judge has ordered Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's former lawyer and the former mayor of New York City, to turn over several of his valuable possessions to the control of Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, 2 Georgia election workers who Giuliani defamed.
He's going to essentially be facing ruinous liability that he can't ever hope to meet.
Giuliani owes Freeman and Moss about $150 million from the defamation judgment against him. The judge has ordered him to turn over his luxury Manhattan apartment, which he recently tried to sell for around $5 million, to a receivership that Freeman and Moss will control. They could then potentially sell it. The judge has also ordered Giuliani to turn over a collection of watches, a signed Joe DiMaggio jersey and other sports memorabilia, a 1980 Mercedes once owned by Hollywood star Lauren Bacall, and he's been ordered to forfeit his television, items of furniture, and jewelry. The judge has not yet decided if Giuliani will be able to keep his condominium in Palm Beach, Florida, or the 4 New York Yankees World Series rings he owns. Giuliani's son says his father gave those rings to him. In the days after the 2020 election, Giuliani falsely accused Freeman and Moss of corrupting the vote count in Georgia.
Surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine.
Giuliani has conceded that he did make defamatory statements about Freeman and Moss, but when he was approached at this year's Republican National Convention by CNN's Caitlin Collins and asked if he regretted that,
I have no regrets at all. I'm on the side of justice, right, and truth.
Are you worried about them being able to seize your New York apartment, your Florida
Can
condo?
I explain to you that I'm not afraid of anything? Because I'm on the side of justice and right. And when history writes about this era, I'm going to be a hero.
But in 2022, during testimony before the House January 6th committee, Freeman and her daughter Moss spoke about the emotional stress they endured due to Giuliani's characterizations of them.
Don't want anyone knowing my name. I don't go to the grocery store at all. I haven't been anywhere at all.
I've lost my name and I've lost my reputation. I've lost my sense of security.
Rudy Giuliani's spokesman has not immediately responded to a request for comment about the judge's latest order. A lawyer for Freeman and Moss sent CNN a statement saying they're proud that their clients will finally receive compensation in this case, and that this should send a message that there's a price to pay for those who intentionally spread disinformation.
Yeah. And at the same time, Giuliani, well, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm on the side of truth and justice. Really, Mr. Giuliani, are you afraid of poverty? Because that's where you're headed. And I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about that at all, because those poll workers had to endure months of just fear that him and others try to, point out that Georgia, they try to say Georgia tried to throw the election toward Biden and not Trump, which again, not true. Multiple times it's been said it's not true. At the same time, they did win a $150 million judgment, which Giuliani tried to skirt, tried to claim bankruptcy, failed, tried to give his World Series rings to his son, which again is just convenient that you give them to your son, that he has to give up his properties. I'm sorry, Giuliani does not deserve an ounce of comfort. He does not. If you sat there and you basically decided to ruin the names of two black women who have done nothing more than their job, at the same time, you yourself are somehow untouched and yet out of jail, then every penny that you owe those women should be stripped from you with extreme prejudice. So I'm not going to feel bad for Rudy Giuliani, because, again, he'll still sit there and say he's on the side of righteousness. History will not see you as a hero, sir. They will see you as an agreeable moron who tried to grift because you saw Donald Trump do it and was successful at it. And yet, the expired Doritos, Locos, Tacos time is coming as well. It's just that Giuliani, you just had to go first. Meanwhile, again, this is also that's also in Akron, Ohio. The story of Jayland Walker. For guys that I don't remember, Jayland Walker was killed let's be honest, he was murdered by police. This was a guy that was actually led police on a car chase, which eventually went to a foot chase, to which when he left from the vehicle, he ran from police. Police then fired at Mr. Walker, killing him. And again, no weapon was found on Mr. Walker at the time of when they shot at him. At the same time, they did an inquiry to where those officers that did shoot Mr. Walker were released. There were no charges being filed. Well, we knew the next thing was going to happen was that the family was going to sue. Initially, they were suing for $45 million, but they were suing the city of Akron and the local and the police there. They did settle for a $4.85 million settlement. And again, I keep bringing this freaking up for reasons beyond my comprehension. Law enforcement are always confused over why people of color will never trust them. Stories like that. Because again, it was an attempted traffic stop for a broken license plate light, to where, again, he fled. It was his car, fled on foot, and they shot him in the back. How much of a danger was this young man where 46 shots went into his back? How much of a danger was he? And even more so, the grand jury that was looking over this case declined to charge the officers, saying that, claiming that the officers were justified in their deadly force against Walker. How? Because those officers were on paid administrative leave. Now they're right back to protecting and serving. So again, I hate to say this, but that's the circle of what happens with police shootings and people of color, with police people in color. Because for some odd reason, outside of guns, and I hate to say this, because in America, guns have more protection, law enforcement has more protection, corporations have more protections than anybody else. Because how is it that a black man escaping a traffic stop had no weapon on him, was no threats to cops shot at him multiple times in his back, said cops did not face charges for excessive force or lethal force, and at the same time reinstated? But all the family can do is sue for wrongful death. And I keep saying this all the time when it comes to law enforcement officers. It is hard because, number one, you guys will never speak up against police activity that goes too far or doesn't even happen. You'll never speak up about your brethren in blue who shouldn't be law enforcement officers because they're too trigger happy and would rather kill people than try to peacefully de-escalate them. You'll never talk about it because the ones that do talk about it, guess what? They're no longer police officers. I wonder why. But yet you wonder why people of color always have an issue with police. Maybe it's because every person of color has a police story. And that's not a badge of honor. That's a problem. But I keep saying this all the time when it comes to law enforcement. Well, we just got a few officers that shouldn't be on the force. Then why are they still there? There are some jobs you just cannot have a few bad apples, and that's just one of them. But we'll get to more law enforcement stories that we have toward the end of the podcast. Anyway, you guys probably remember this story a few years ago. Imagine you're an RA at a college and you always get a drunken disorderly that decides that, hey, I'm drunk enough to call you the N-word, and you show amazing restraint. Yes, it's that story.
A University of Kentucky student caught on camera using racial slurs and getting physical after a night out. Other students identified the woman in the video as Sophia Rosing. The Black student employee on the receiving end, freshman Kyla Spring, explained it all went down around 1 o'clock Sunday morning at Boyd Residence Hall, where she was working as a desk clerk. She says Rosing came into the building and appeared inebriated. When she and some other students tried to help, she says Rosing launched into an attack, calling her the N-word and trying to hit her several times, as Spring is seen holding her off and begging her to stop.
Could you stop, please? No. Could you stop? No.
Spring keeping her cool throughout the ordeal as Rosing continues her verbal assault.
Oh, Jesus. I did not get paid enough for this. Exactly.
The video goes on to show Rosing throwing several more punches and appearing to try and hit Spring with a shopping cart. The entire video is simply too explicit for us to show without.
Okay, so we all got a refresher, drunk white girl on campus, filling the story, right? But the worker, again, as the name was already said, had to deal with a lot. And I mean a lot. Miss Spring showed incredible patience. Because I know if it was me and I get somebody drunk off their ass, decides that, with all the liquid courage they got in their system, decides to sit there and call me the N-word, I'll be honest, they might be eating some floor. I'm patient, but I'm not a saint. I'm going to be honest about that. They might eat some floor, and I might say they fell. That's just me. But the reason why I bring up that video, because, again, this was not that long ago. Really wasn't. I think it was the crazy part about this whole thing is it really wasn't that long ago, back in 2022. Well, the woman, again, pled guilty. Now, I want you to understand right here, this woman, as you see right there, Miss Spring, was the woman that was accosted by the drunk white girl. Now, here's the crazy part about this all, right? She did face assault charges, which were pleaded down during remediation. So she literally, at first, it was 4 counts, 4th-degree assault, 1 count of disorderly conduct, 1 count of alcohol intoxication. However, it's been knocked down in mediation because they said she apologized. Here's the great. People got to apologize and express feelings face to face, which, again, it just bugs me a little bit because what it got reduced down to, guys, for all those that don't know, she got a recommended sentence up to 12 months for assault charges. That's running concurrent, which means that technically she's not in jail unless she fucks up again. I apologize for using the word fuck up. She also gets 100 hours community service and a $25 fine. She's also banned from ever attending the University of Kentucky. Now, again, Miss Spring, it doesn't say exactly the compensation that she should have gotten because technically, because let's be honest, she should have, for someone that literally, you could have whooped her ass. And we all would have understood. I'm just going to be honest. Miss Spring was in every right to whoop that woman's ass. And everybody would have understood. But she did show incredible restraint. The University of Kentucky should have done more. Now, at the same time, the person, the drunk white girl, again, Sophia Rosing, because Miss Spring said it best. Her family had money. She immediately was disenrolled from the University of Kentucky. She was whisked away as if she was dust. But she will be facing some sort of action. But at the same time, it does shine a light on, drunk and disorderly things that do happen on campus. At the same time, you have people, as she said so eloquently, I don't get paid enough for this. But was enough justice done in the situation? Not really. I think that there should have been a little bit more because I don't know what it is, but whenever it comes to the napkins of the country, that if they're young enough and they do dumb crap, yet somehow their lives are not affected because of it, but their victims are. Make it make sense. But speaking of making things that make sense, try to make things make sense. Cat Williams called it best. 2024 was going to be the year of truth. And if you have stock in Abercrombie & Fitch right now, you might want to sell.
Allegations tonight against the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, along with 2 other suspects, arrested tonight on federal charges of sex trafficking and prostitution. Prosecutors say they lured young men with the promise of modeling jobs. Here's our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, the former chief executive of one of the world's most recognizable clothing retailers is under arrest, accused of operating an international sex trafficking and prostitution business that preyed on aspiring models.
Powerful individuals for too long have trafficked and abused for their own sexual pleasure young people with few resources and a dream.
Abercrombie & Fitch, famous for the bare-chested young men standing at the front of their stores. Michael Jeffries allegedly used his wealth and power as CEO to fulfill his sexual desires by luring men to what prosecutors call sex events with the promise of modeling opportunities that did not exist. 15 men have come forward who said they were made to sign non-disclosure agreements, wear costumes, and then forced to perform explicit sex acts for money. But prosecutors say the men were never told the nature of the sexual activity that would be required. The indictment charged Jeffries, who is now 80, his romantic partner, Matthew Smith, and a recruiter, James Jacobson, with what prosecutors called abhorrent behavior.
The defendants pressured the men to consume alcohol, Viagra, and muscle relaxants known as poppers during the sex events.
The allegations mirror civil lawsuits by several alleged victims.
They left believing they had serious financial, reputational, and potentially physical risk of ever saying anything, which is why it's taken so long for this to come out.
Former model Barrett Paul says in 2011 he was flown from L.A. to a party at Jeffries' estate in the Hamptons.
I was told that there could be some things that were not your normal interview. However, this is your chance.
The criminal charges are based on 15 alleged victims, but David, the FBI believes there may be dozens more and ask them to come forward. If they do, prosecutors say there could be even more criminal charges.
And again, it is crazy because in the wake of the diddler and his sex trafficking crimes, it's almost about to be a Law and Order SVU episode because more heads are going to fall. Now, should they all face the letter of the law to the maximum? Absolutely. But you can't help but wonder, did Cat Williams get this right? I mean, don't get me wrong, he's yet to be wrong. But again, like I said, if you have stock in Abercrombie & Fitch right now, might want to sell while the getting's good. That's all I'm saying, because I think Abercrombie & Fitch might be for sale in the next coming weeks. Just saying. But anyway, one move along on this way, guys, because as we get to the election, I find myself asking questions, especially in the sense of Elon Musk. And, let me stress this before I tell the story. Elon Musk is an idiot. He didn't create Tesla. He bought it. He didn't create SpaceX. He bought it. He bought it, and then he tried to make it his own. That being said, Elon Musk also bought Twitter, and yet he didn't make it. And he tried to make it turn Twitter into X, but decided not only to back Donald Trump, not only decided to beat his campaigns. I think at this point that he has actually done something that Trump has done, but yet has still been called out upon it. Elon Musk may have actually violated election campaign laws. Why? Purchasing voters. I can't make this up.
Welcome back. Videos are flooding social media now of billionaire Elon Musk's $1 million giveaway to voters in swing states. To qualify, you've got to sign a petition supporting the First and Second Amendments. But there's a catch. You can only sign the petition if you're a registered voter. Critics have questioned whether that move is legal or not, but Musk's PAC says they are confident it is. So chances are you heard about that, but probably not this. A different effort to appeal to swing state voters, this time by an organization that calls itself Progress 2028. They're running ads, these ads in particular, misleading ads right now as we speak on Facebook, appearing to look like they're from Kamala Harris or Democratic supporters, but they're touting policy positions that often the Harris campaign explicitly does not have, like claiming Harris wants to ban fracking. This show, us here, we reviewed Facebook ad data, and more than 300 of these ads were purchased to be placed in the feeds of voters in every single swing state. So to talk more about that and about that Elon Musk giveaway, we want to bring in Anna.
So I'm going to stop it right there because basically this goes into commentary. The crazy part about this, guys, is that is very true. Elon Musk is literally saying, hey, if you sign up and say you support the First and Second Amendment in a swing state, I will pay you $1 million. So far, reportedly, he has paid out $3 million to 3 voters. Here's the problem. That is a violation, and it's basically called election interference. You can't buy votes. You cannot entice or incorporate people by using money to have them register for voting. That is seen as election interference. Now, of course, it's Elon Musk's PAC that's doing this. So, again, they've already been told, or if I'm understanding correctly, they've already been informed that they may have possibly violated election laws, which, again, they have. But this is how far some people are going for Trump, that they will sit there and violate laws just to get people to vote. Because, again, I hate to say this, guys, between the expired Doritos Locos Tacos that is trying to get his second act and a qualified black woman, how is this a close race? I cannot stress that enough. How the frack is it a close race? You have an intelligent black woman, you have an idiot. Somehow they are neck and neck. And it's only because the idiot has found his cult. And now they're trying to buy more people into it. But outside of that, then this is why I say the reason why I say election laws need to be looked at. Not because of the fact that enticing people to register to vote and then give them money for it doesn't violate anything. This dumbass law is still in place. That these University of Georgia students are protesting because the law that went into effect in 2021 had new anti-voting measures. One of those measures we talked about in this podcast, where you cannot hand out food or water to voters near polling places. Now, that's what they're protesting. Now, that law, in my opinion, was dumb as hell, because giving a person a bottle of water or food near a polling place does not influence their vote. In Georgia, because again, in the South is like a hot plate at a Waffle House. It's freaking hot 80% of the time here. And then you have a brutal winter. The point I'm getting at is when you're voting, you don't know if it's going to be a hot day, a cold day, a mix of the two. But it used to be that when you went to a polling station, they would give you water or food because, again, if you've been in those polling places, it can take a while. Them lines can back up. It used to be accepted that you can give food or water to people who vote. It's just common human decency. But in Georgia, it's now illegal. So you're telling me that Elon Musk PAC can go around here unscathed, playing Publishers Clearinghouse with voters and giving them money, because let's be honest, that it does entice them, but yet giving food or water to somebody at a polling place is considered illegal. Make it make sense, because it doesn't. Hence the reason why I keep on saying intelligent black woman, expired Doritos Locos Tacos. How the frack is it a close race? But here's the one thing I did actually bring a smile to my face. Remember the Central Park Five, the 5 teenagers that Trump took out a freaking 5-page ad in the New York Times for, that sat there and condemned those 5 black men because they were accused of raping, they were sexually assaulting a white woman in Central Park? Now the exonerated 5 have some words for Trump. We're suing your ass.
Welcome back. The now exonerated members of the group known as the Central Park Five are suing Donald Trump for defamation after comments he made about them at a presidential debate last month. The complaint accuses the former president of making, quote, demonstrably false statements while on stage in Pennsylvania in September. Trump falsely claimed that the group of black and Latino men, who were just teenagers at the time, had pleaded guilty when they were tried in connection with the brutal assault and rape of a woman who was running in Central Park back in 1989. He also said that the victim had died, all things that are not true.
They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty.
Again, all that not true. A spokesperson for the Trump campaign is calling the lawsuit an attempt to distract the American people. We have NBC News legal analyst Danny Sabalo is here to help break this down for us. Danny, good morning. Always great to have you with us. So the Central Park Five, they spent years behind bars for a crime that ultimately they didn't commit. Remind us how that was, that they were ultimately cleared, and the suffering they say that they went through because of that and really are still going through.
After they were convicted and serving time, completely lucky to them, a serial rapist who had raped women around that same time confessed, and DNA evidence confirmed that he was, as his story said, the only perpetrator of the crime. So in relatively short order, most of the defendants were released, their convictions overturned. So this is something that had that was not the result of additional investigation. If for whatever reason the real doer confessed, DNA evidence confirmed it. Otherwise, those kids would still be in prison today, probably, depending on their sentence.
What has to be proven here? Because defamation can be tricky, right? I mean, is this as clear-cut as it looks?
This is one of those cases where you don't need a whole lot of discovery. You could probably go to trial next month. You get a couple experts maybe, but what is there that you need a lot of discovery for? You've got a transcript, you've got the video, you've seen the entire case in the last minute, and it's that statement. And the question is, first, was that a false statement? And second, did it cause the plaintiffs harm? And when you accuse people of a crime, generally speaking, the harm is presumed. So the real inquiry is, was that a false statement? And was it a false statement that was made deliberately? And he's obviously intentionally making that statement. So it looks like Trump has a problem. I'll just add that the attorneys, I happen to know the attorneys representing the plaintiffs here. This is not a fly-by-night law firm just throwing something against the wall and hoping something will stick. These guys are titans of the personal injury world. So for them to take on this case means they think it has value, and they win. And I'm biased because I've worked with them a little in the past, but I can tell you they're no joke. They win cases.
Are they seeking damages?
Of course, they're going to seek. And we're in a really interesting era because I handle personal injury type cases where In the past, defamation cases were not seen as particularly appetizing cases, but in a Trump era, in an era with a lot of very famous people saying dumb things, we have a strange situation where you might have a plaintiff who has a shattered femur, real medical injuries, and they might only be entitled to about a few $1 million in damages. But defamation cases are getting these $100 million verdicts with hardly a medical record to be seen other than maybe some emotional damage. So defamation cases, the right kind, and this may be the right kind, can be huge, not very expensive to prosecute, and not take that long to resolve. This is in federal court in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, a place where I've been several times. It'll move pretty quickly and it'll go to trial. But the reality is it will not go to trial. They'll get a trial date pretty soon. This case will, in all likelihood, settle.
So again, I love how the fact that, again, I know he's a lawyer. He knows how the process goes. But I love the fact that he sat there and said, there's not a lot of discovery that's got to be done here. Because in my mind, I'm just like, so does anybody not have a copy of the New York Times from 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago? When Trump decided to take out that 5-page ad talking about, they should be executed. Nobody has a copy of that. I'm pretty sure it's easy to find, but it amazes me so. It amazes me so that, yes, they should go after him. Those five men's lives are forever changed by that accusation. Those 5 men have every right in the world to go after Trump. They have every right in the world to sue him for whatever money he's got at this point, because it's all RNC at this moment. But yes, sue him, because honestly, and forgive me for saying this, payback's a bitch. He basically slandered them in the newspaper. Turnabout is fair play. They were emotionally scarred from it. It'll be easy to prove that. And I do agree with the lawyer. Would I love to see Trump in a courtroom explaining why he took out a 5-page ad against the exonerated 5? Would love nothing more to see Trump in a courtroom again. But does that mean that it will go there? Probably not. As the lawyer said, they'll probably sell out of court. Though, amount will probably be undisclosed. But let's just think about that for a second. There is a chance that this felon, who's already facing multiple court cases, and this one is a slam dunk, would love to have this televised all over again. Because again, there's still a scary thought that he could somehow still be president. But at the same time, I would like to see some justice done because of him and because of others and, the prosecutor and the officers that, beat these boys till they confessed. There has to be some justice for the exonerated 5. Why not the expired Doritos Locos Tacos paying them out? That would be cool to see. But speaking of that expired Doritos Locos Tacos, well, he decided that, since Kamala Harris said that, one of her first jobs working at McDonald's, in the worst display of a public event, Trump decides he wants to work at McDonald's. And yet, just watch.
This is fun. I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. My first day at McDonald's, I'm looking for a job. And I've always wanted to work at McDonald's, but I never did. I'm running against somebody that said she did, but it turned out to be a totally phony story. So if you don't mind, I want to work the French fry counter. Absolutely. Okay, how much are you paying me? How much are you paying?
Lower slowly into the wood, I want to burn. Then it's going to hit our fry pan. Very good.
Grab one while it's really hot. See if you can touch that sucker. I don't think so. Okay. Never even touch it, huh? Wow, that's pretty good. All right. Appreciate all that. Thank you. There'll be no charge. Trump is paying for it. Is that okay? Oh, you're doing some extra stuff. Oh, okay, great. This is all on Trump. Oh, hello, how are you? You're a good-looking guy. I love you. Give me a thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will. I promise. Thank you very much. Perfect looking person. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Mom. Mom over there. That's with him, huh? How you doing, sir? Fantastic. Hello. How are you? Your new baby. How are you? How are you? So this is complimented of you, okay? All right. This is fun. I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again. Thank you. Look at that. Look at that. How are you? Thank you, Mr. President. Nice to see you. You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet. You're not ordinary. I mean, thank you so much. You are not ordinary. I can see. We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I apologize for the last 2 minutes of BS you had to watch because that stunt, let me explain that to you. So anyway, that stunt at McDonald's was a closed office. All those people driving up were basically paid actors. Trump literally sat there, and this just goes to show you how disassociated he is from reality. Number one, he walked in McDonald's and said, I would like to have a job. Anybody who's ever walked to McDonald's knows that the first thing they're going to sit there and tell you if you want to work at McDonald's is go online and fill out the application. You're not going to get in there. And on top of that, he already says he wants to be at the fry station. Any fast food worker that's ever worked in any restaurant will tell you, you don't start out at the fries. There's a scene out of Coming to America where Louis Anderson, God rest his soul, said it best. He sat there and said, I started at the lettuce. Next is the fries. In 2 years, I might be assistant manager. And that's where the big bucks roll in. Granted, it's Coming to America, but it's true. He made that entire event look so disassociated from the real world because anybody that's ever, if you worked on, if you've been on either end of a fast food window, you're working minimum wage. The food is hot. 9 times out of 10, you might be burned. You might be tired. You might be burned out. You might be working your second or even your third shift. People are the customers are annoyed because the food isn't hot. It's not coming out fast enough. You don't have something. The ice cream machine's broken. You're dealing with the greatest experiment in human personality and human behavior. And Trump sat there and said, well, I could do this all day. Yeah, you could. Yeah, I guess you could, Trump, because all you're basically doing is having people pander to you. You're handing them bags of food to paid actors who are designed to make you feel good. It's like your own personal retirement home. And if we could leave you there, we would. Because that entire event was stupid. Because how else he sat there and was amazed about how the fries are packaged. Sir, do you think, and I think this is why I say Trump's an idiot, because how in the world does someone like him think fries are given to him? He eats McDonald's all the time. You don't think he just maybe might ask the question? But that just goes to show you the levels he'll go. The level of disrespect, of disassociation from reality. And folks get there and say, well, that's just Trump working for the everyday man. He's doing our jobs. He's showing us he can do it. No. That was a terrible PR stunt. And even more so, that's not the craziest things he said. Trump seems to out-Trump himself all the way up into this election. But I think this next part is going to be a little bit hard to beat.
Beginning his closing message on the campaign, using vulgar language and new attacks against Vice President Harris. Rachel Scott is here with the latest on that. Rachel, good morning.
Hey, Whit, good morning to you. And Donald Trump has never really been a conventional candidate. He rarely sticks to a script, but his closing message in the critical battleground state of Pennsylvania is drawing attention this morning, not for what he said about his vision for the country, but because of his vulgar language and profane attacks. Over the weekend, Donald Trump barnstorming Pennsylvania for what his campaign said would be the start of his closing message to voters.
So if we win Pennsylvania, we win the whole damn thing, right?
But his rally in that must-win state took a lewd and vulgar turn. The former president opening his speech with a 12-minute diatribe about the late golf legend Arnold Palmer, who grew up in the town, and how other players reacted after seeing him in the shower.
I'm going to tell him the real story of Arnold. But Arnold Palmer was all man. And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. His man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had to say it. We have women that are highly sophisticated here.
When Trump eventually turned to his rival, he used profanity to attack Vice President Kamala Harris.
So you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've had enough, that you just can't take it anymore. We can't stand you. You're a vice president. The worst.
Trump drifted throughout his speech. In one 30-second riff, he went from pushing false claims about the 2020 election to complaining that President Biden is no longer in the race to talking about his hair.
He got 14 million votes and he won. 22 people running, 22 Democrats there running. Oh, I'm looking at my hair up there. Let's see. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like it. Excuse me, I'm going to recomb my hair. Do you mind? I'll leave the stage for 5 minutes. I'm going to recomb my hair, Mr. Future Senator. We have David down here. Mr. Future Senator, you got to get him in.
Despite pleas from his allies to focus on the issues, not personal attacks, Trump has only escalated his rhetoric. For the third time in just 1 week, repeating claims that his political opponents are the enemy from within. At one point, even suggesting they could be, quote, easily handled by the military.
The outside people, the so-called enemies, if they're enemies, and they might not be enemies, if you have a smart president, they can be handled.
During an interview with Fox News, Trump was repeatedly presented with facts to challenge him on his false claims about January 6th.
There was nobody killed here. Nobody had guns here either.
There were people with guns.
Well, really? I'd like to know. You mean in the rally, or they had some guns at their home?
No,
someplace.
at the rally.
Oh, really? Well, I have not heard that at all. No, I don't think so.
Over a dozen members of the mob have faced gun charges as part of the attack. And at a campaign photo op at McDonald's, the former president fixated over whether Harris ever worked there, once again hedging on whether he would accept the results of the November election.
It's a fair election, always. I would always accept it if it's got to be a fair election.
Billionaire Elon Musk, who is backing Donald Trump, has been doing a series of campaign events for him in Pennsylvania.
So that just goes back into the check thing I told you guys about. But let's think about this for a second here. And I know I shouldn't say this. Any man that talks about another man and is in awe of said man when said man takes shower, not to diss the LGBTQ plus community out there. You guys know we're always your allies. But Trump saying that, highly effing suspect and also disgusting, because this is a man who looked at Biden and sat there and said he's unfit to be president. Well, Biden said, cool, I'm not going to run again. And now you're the old guy who's unfit to be president, unhinged at every rally you go to. So obsessed with your opponent working for McDonald's that you decide to pull a PR stunt and go to McDonald's. At the same time, calling her a shitty vice president, not understanding that you were a shittier president. You were a shitty businessman. The only businessman that I know that could literally take a casino and bankrupt it. Literally, the blueprint for making money in the United States, and you bankrupted it. But yet had the nerve to talk about an established, very well-spoken, highly educated Black woman, and yet we're supposed to believe you when you are more obsessed with her than most Dexter fans. I'm sorry. This is, like I said before, and then talking about another man's area in a shower and saying other men were in awe. Again, how is this a close race? How? That's all I'm saying. But we do got a couple of law enforcement stories before we go ahead and move on to our feel good segment. Again, this is basically about a school resource officer that decided to punch a student. And again, the video speaks for itself.
This new video shows the tense moments leading up to a cop punching a kid. Just before school is about to start at the Firestone Community Learning Center, you can see this teen trying to get around the school's metal detectors. Watch as this officer stops him and forces him to turn back around. Police say they tried to get the teen to go through multiple times and say the detector went off at least once. They say this caused them to believe the teen might have a weapon. You can then see the teen try and force his way through the cops into the school. And after a brief struggle, the cops and the teen start walking until this school resource officer punches the kid in the head.
I found the video upsetting. I expect many others will as well.
The student was charged with trespassing, resisting arrest, and obstructing, but those charges were then later dropped without prejudice, meaning after an internal investigation, they could all be refiled.
The other officer, the officer who did not strike the student, he is on his regular patrol shift.
At Monday's Akron Public School Board meeting, board members questioned the district policies about resource officer training. Superintendent Michael Robinson said they are conducting a policy review and working with city and police officials to figure out how this happened.
There must be accountability when incidents like this occur between an SRO and a student. The safety and well-being of our scholars and staff remains my highest priority.
The teen is now being represented by an Akron law firm. Attorneys provided this statement reading in part, "No child deserves to be punched in the face by an adult, and an arrest must follow proper procedures, not driven by an officer's rage."
Okay, so yeah, that's all well and good, but the officer still has to explain, but someone has to explain, including the SRO, why did you punch the kid in the head? Because for all intents and purposes, and I say this wholeheartedly, all intents and purposes, there are two of you and one of him. And yes, we're not sure of whether or not he may have had a weapon on him, but there are two of you and one of him. I'm not saying that the young man may have been strong enough to think that he could push past two supposedly trained officers that have non-lethal ways of actually subduing him. But punching him in the head seems like a very angry and yet personal response. And why? I have to say this again. The officer, unprovoked, did assault the student. Why is he not arrested? That's assault. He should know he's a cop. At the same time, when the school board brings this up, because we will follow up on this, they have to ask that question. Why was the officer not arrested for the assault on the teen? Well, he could have had anything on him and he was trying to get to school. We're trying to prevent another school massacre. Understand. But again, there were two officers and one of him. You're telling me two officers couldn't get one student down without hurting the student or themselves? Make it make sense. But we'll follow that story. But another follow-up we have is this story that literally is just a week ago, about officers who decided to roll up on an individual and, well, just said F his Miranda rights and just beat his ass.
Hey, buddy, stop where you're at. Just seconds after making contact. Let's see. Phoenix police officers scuffling with, then forcing Tyron McAlpin to the ground. McAlpin, who is deaf and has cerebral palsy, appearing confused. Get your hands behind your back. As officers shout commands. In this body cam footage from August 19th, provided by his attorney. Officers repeatedly punching McAlpin's head, then tasering him 4 separate times. The officers, Benjamin Harris and Kyle Sue, were responding to a call of an altercation at the Circle K convenience store, according to police reports provided by McAlpin's attorney. The caller reportedly indicated the aggressor was a white male who refused to leave the store, and when officers questioned that man on scene, They say he accused McAlpin of trying to steal his bike and punching him.
We're saying that's the guy that assaulted
right there with the back of on.
In response, officers rushed to detain McAlpin, but his lawyer tells NBC News both policemen failed to use due diligence.
At no point do you believe that proper police protocol was followed here?
That's correct. The reason for the contact with Tyrone McAlpin is supposed to be just to investigate what happened at the Circle K. What Officer Harris does instead is he doesn't activate his lights. He leaps out of the car, and when you watch his body camera, you see his hands going forward, outstretched, grabbing Tyrone. All he had to do was step out of the vehicle and give Tyrone a chance to respond to him.
It's not clear that the officers knew McAlpin was deaf when he was first approached. His wife arriving moments after the confrontation, trying to explain her husband's situation.
What kind of disabilities do you have?
He's deaf and he's got cerebral palsy.
Saying she was FaceTiming with McAlpin before police moved in, using sign language to communicate.
How is he deaf if you've been on the phone?
Because I know sign language, that's why.
Officers at one point even threatening to detain her.
Ma'am, over there on the sidewalk, or you're going to go to jail.
McAlpin's been charged with 3 felonies, 2 counts of aggravated assault on the arresting officers, and 1 count of resisting arrest. The 2 officers both reporting injuries.
Broke my hand. Did he bite you?
Yeah. In response to questions about officers' actions, Phoenix police said in part, the incident is the subject of an ongoing internal investigation.
Yeah, that ongoing investigation, mind you guys, actually wrapped up. The reason why is because the charges were dismissed against Mr. Alpin. Basically because the attorney at the time for Maricopa County said that she completed a review of the case and made the decision to dismiss the assault and resisting arrest charges. Wow. I wonder why. Could it be that your officers basically didn't do their job? Could it be the fact they rolled up on an individual and decided, instead of asking questions in a civil manner, decided to beat his ass? And then they did it with their body cams on. Because the story is, guys, the individual that the officers did talk to, the white guy in the video, was the guy that the store clerk had called it on. So instead of the officers doing their due diligence and actually going to the store clerk, they went to Mr. Assaultee, who decided to point out a walking black man and said, yeah, that's him. Officers not doing their due diligence is what led to this entire event. Now, Mr. Alpin is considering an attorney. I hope they sue. But at the same time, no actions are going to be reported against those law enforcement officers as of yet. And I keep saying this the entire time. What is it going to take? Because for the world of law enforcement, you're not going to sit there and try to convince us otherwise that, well, it's just the norm. Tonight we just literally covered 2 stories of officers failing to do their jobs. Officers who are not trained, except trained to detain and to kill. Officers who have better protections than most insurance companies. And I said before, officers who will forever have a problem with people of color trusting them just because we don't want to wind up a statistic. Make it make sense, because I've said all the time about police reform. Officers, we do need better trained officers. We do need better screenings. We do need psychiatric evaluations. We do need to have more training put to them. Because I have been saying this now for going on 3 years, and yet no one has stopped me or corrected me. You train longer to be a contractor, a nail technician, HVAC technician, welder, plumber. You train longer in the trade industry than you do for law enforcement. 6 months in the police academy, and then you're out there to protect and serve. And I get it. I keep saying all the time, you do need more training. I think education requirement should be added to that. I think that there needs to be higher standards for who we allow to be law enforcement. Like I said, if other countries can figure this out and their crime rates are low, why not us? Oh, but we don't want to admit that we do have a Leo problem, and that Leo problem needs reform. Simple and plain. But we're going to go and move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually talk about things that are sometimes doom and gloom, sometimes make you faith in humanity. But hey, it's hump day. Technically, it's early morning Thursday, but we will leave you guys out some good vibrations. And hopefully this Star Story will do that because, again, thankfully, one bus driver saw a wandering child that could have wound up being a missing child. But thankfully, his actions led her back to her family. And a few years later, they're having a little bit of a reunion.
Thank you, Louis, for being my hero and saving my life.
Make me feel so good. My heart was pumping. I couldn't wait to meet her and the parents because something like that is to be celebrated. She was able to get home.
We were totally scared. We didn't know what to think. We was terrified because that's our little girl.
It's beautiful to meet Louis, and he's a beautiful person, and thank God, thank him. She's here with us today.
I decided to make my new fish, Louis. I was excited, and I was happy, and it was perfect.
It says Addie's Hero. I love it.
And again, like I said, that's good on him because we keep on talking about our kids and, kids that are coming up missing and that no one's looking for them. And that little girl could have been another one. But thankfully to that man who actually stepped up and looked out for the kids. That's why I said I do miss the village of old. But hey, always a good feeling to actually send everybody home. But with that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching. Let me know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I do want to talk about blurredstation.com. Blurredstation.com, it is the vehicle. It is the table we always ask for content that is owned by us, to be shown by us, and yet that same money, that flow goes into our pockets. Tubi's great, but Tubi's owned by Fox. And again, the guy that owns Fox now has Tubi valued at more than $100 million and counting. That same money can go to us, and why not us? Because Blur Station could definitely do that. Simply put, check out blurrstation.com, and if you like what you see, hit the Join Now button. Select the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership. Select my name, Black Spartan there. I would certainly appreciate that. It's $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. $10.99 a month. After 36 months, you do have the ability to own a piece of Blur Station, and owning a piece of a media conglomerate has never been easy. But definitely check out blurrstation.com. Also, check out alwayspressrecord.com, APR TV. Why? Because you see shows like mine on there. APR TV can be seen anywhere. That includes internet, that includes smart devices, it includes the Roku app. Basically, if you got internet, you can see me on your screen. Again, follow APR TV, another avenue to where our money and our dollars basically will go in our pockets. At the same time, guys, I know early voting is happening. Please check out your states. How you can find that out? Vote.org. Yes, vote.org can still help you guys. I know November 5th is not too far away. However, depending on your state, please check the site because the site can help you with early voting, can tell you where you need to go, at the same time what you need to bring. You can still check your registration. You can still get every option available to you. Do not let this opportunity pass you by this November 5th because we all have a civic duty. And trust me, and I don't mean to be biased, plus I want to be biased. We do not want to give a felon who looks like expired Doritos Locos Tacos another shot at the presidency. Please go to vote.org, be prepared, check out early voting if you can, and just be prepared for November 5th if you can. Because again, if voting wasn't so important, they would not be trying everything, including the kitchen sink, to disengage you from voting. As for myself, guys, you can find me, Black_Spartan615 on the socials. I'm easy to talk to. At the same time, guys, I talk more than just current events. The only rule that I have is don't be weird. I don't want to block you. I don't want to start that whole thing. Just don't be weird. At the same time, guys, these podcasts can be seen wherever you get your podcasts from, whether that's Spotify, whether it's Google Play, whether it's Apple, Apple Podcasts. Pretty much, guys, download it, share it. A like, a share, a follow costs nothing and means everything, but means the world to us because we simply cannot do this without you. The link at the bottom, I'll just make that a little bit bigger for you guys to see, is a link. If you go copy and paste that link into your browser, take it to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook podcast. The YouTube, Facebook groups for all the podcasts. Like, share, subscribe, run the numbers up, as Meg Thee Stallion would say. I know I don't have that same look, or I'm not as, I don't have, let's be honest, I don't have what she has, but I do my best. But like, share, and follow, guys. I cannot stress this enough that, again, we here at How the Frack We Got Here do take pride in giving you the news, at the same time being an independent media, because we're going to give you the truth, and truth can be accepted whether you like it or not. But again, we enjoy it, and we hope you do too, and hope it encourages you to basically seek out the truth yourself and do it the right way. Please, not the research types from those from Trump News. That would help us out tremendously. But again, guys, November 5th, not too far off. We all need to be doing our civic duty. At the same time, it's almost a magical time. It's honestly like it's 2000. It's almost like Obama when he wanted to run. We could do the same thing again because, yes, Kamala. I hate when I hear it. It's like, it's like, good God. How many ways can you destroy a woman's name? It's like, just, it's a, well, Kamala. I was like, oh God. How about you say the name that she's gonna have? Madam President. Simple. But last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, guys, it's very much about being informed. We do a lot better in society where we're informed because we're progressive. We move forward. We try to correct our mistakes of the past by making decisions that we should have done then that we're doing now, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, and hopefully very soon, I hope, electing our first Black Madam President. I hope, because I don't know if our country can survive the second coming of expired Rios Locos Tacos. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up on our paycheck? Why are we letting different politicians still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll all get through this. Peace.